Too seldom is the shadow of what must come cast in an instant on the secret sense, which feels the shock of the invisible, and seldom in the few who answer give the mighty process of the cosmic will communicates its image to our sight, identifying the world's mind with ours. Well, we have a very important word here, capitalized, will. We have definitions for will, and we have a definition from Sri Aurobindo of the cosmic will. He says, in The Secret of the Veda, Agni is the Deva, the all-seer, manifested as conscious force, or as it would be called in modern language, divine or cosmic will. First hidden and building up the eternal worlds, then manifest, born, building up in man the truth and immortality. Vladimir, could you share something more from the Vedas with us on this process of the cosmic will?
Well, I have always wondered, because there are some people identify Agni with psychic aspiration, and it is normally understood in the Sri Aurobindo's circle or community as aspiration, flame in the heart, which is truly the case later. But in the Veda, it is a cosmic will. It is the will, the power which is within the nature. If we could use Mother's words in this way, it is like the psychic presence in nature, that particular force, will of which is pushing all nature in evolutionary forward. So everything evolves, everything is seeking its highest expression. And that is the power. It's a cosmic power, of which we are also, our flame in the heart is also of that power. But Agni is our father, as it were, and we are the sparks of that flame, psychic beings, as it were. So it's a more cosmic force rather than individual aspiration.
Thank you. Now, Sri Aurobindo tells us a lot about will, and it will take some time to go through this because it's an extremely important term in the integral yoga, in all yoga actually, but especially in this yoga. So Sri Aurobindo says in The Life Divine, there is no necessity in the essential nature of mind, sense, life, that they should be so limited for the physical sense organs. For the physical sense organs are not the creators of sense perceptions, but themselves the creation. The instruments, and here a necessary convenience of the cosmic sense, the nervous system and vital organs are not the creators of life's action and reaction, but themselves the creation. The instruments, and here a necessary convenience of the cosmic life force. The brain is not the creator of thought, but itself the creation, the instrument, and here a necessary convenience of the cosmic mind. The necessity then is not absolute, but teleological. It is the result of a divine cosmic will in the material universe, which intends to posit here a physical relation between sense and its object, establishes here a material formula and law of conscious force, and creates by it physical images of conscious being to serve as the initial, dominating, and determining fact of the world in which we live. It is not a fundamental law of being, but a constructive principle necessitated by the intention of the spirit to evolve in a world of matter. These things that we consider all our own doing are not at all that. And Sri Aurobindo makes this very, very clear. We are instruments here of a cosmic life force. Even our minds do not create thought, but they receive thoughts. And if they're highly evolved, they can receive thoughts from the highest realms, from the illumined, the intuitive, and even the overmind. So again, in the Life Divine, he says, moreover, we see that this cosmic action, or any cosmic action, is impossible without the play of an infinite force of existence, which produces and regulates all these forms and movements. And that force equally presupposes or is the action of an infinite consciousness, because it is in its nature a cosmic will, determining all relations and apprehending them by its own mode of awareness. And it could not so determine and apprehend them if there were no comprehensive consciousness behind that mode of cosmic awareness to originate as well as to hold, fix, and reflect through it the relations of being in the developing formation or becoming of itself, which we call a universe. Oh my goodness. So we're back in this cosmic will, constantly in this cosmic will. We go back to it in 3 different letters on yoga. The first one, it is not possible for the individual mind, so long as it remains shut up in its personality, to understand the workings of the cosmic will. For the standards made by the personal consciousness are not applicable to them. A cell in the body, if conscious, might also think that the human being and its actions are only the resultant of the relations and workings of a number of cells like itself, and not the action of a unified self. It is only if one enters into the cosmic consciousness that one begins to see the forces at work and the lines on which they work, and get a glimpse of the cosmic self and the cosmic mind and will. The second from Letters on Yoga. The cosmic will is not, to our ordinary consciousness, something that acts as an independent power, doing whatever it chooses. It works through all these beings, through the forces at play in the world, and the law of these forces and their results. It is only when we open ourselves and get out of the ordinary consciousness that we can feel it intervening as an independent power and overriding the ordinary play of the forces. That is such a powerful statement, because this ordinary play of the forces is something that is often consuming us. And we have to get over that. We have to let this cosmic will override this ordinary play of these forces. And then we can feel it intervening as an independent power. So the last letters on yoga, very brief. Then too, we can see that even in the play of forces, and in spite of their distortions, the cosmic will is working towards the eventual realization of the will of the transcendent divine. And in his essays in philosophy and yoga, he says, a cosmic will and wisdom, observant of the ascending march of the soul's consciousness and experience as it emerges out of the subconscious matter and climbs to its own luminous divinity, fixes the norm and constantly enlarges the lines of the law. Or let us say, since law is a too mechanical conception, the truth of karma. So as we ascend and the soul rises in consciousness, emerging out of this subconscious matter, climbing to its own luminous divinity, the norms change, the truth of karma changes. And so we have this wonderful line in Savitri that even if the Lord decides that in this one instance our karma cannot change, he puts a check on our credit page. So now we'll go through that again, those lines, because it's so important. Too seldom is the shadow of what must come cast in an instant on the secret sense, which feels the shock of the invisible. So it doesn't happen very often. It's a shadow of what must come, and it's cast momentarily on the secret sense. The secret sense feels the shock of the invisible, but then he says, unfortunately, and seldom in the few who answer give, who respond to it, this mighty process of the cosmic will communicates its image to our sight, identifying the world's mind with ours. Why is that? Well, he tells us why it is. Our range is fixed within the crowded arc of what we observe and touch and thought can guess, and rarely dawns the light of the unknown, waking in us the prophet and the seer. Yes, our range, unfortunately, is so often fixed within this crowded empirical art of which we observe things and touch things and smell things and hear things and see things. And so of what we observe and touch and what our thoughts can guess. But what we have to do is open to the dawning of this light of the unknown that will wake in us the prophet and the seer. Sri Aurobindo continues because he wants us to understand a lot more. But let us, for just a moment, look at his definition of the unknown in the Life Divine and the Upanishads, because he capitalizes and rarely dawns the light of the unknown. The unknown is not the unknowable. It need not remain the unknown for us unless we choose ignorance or persist in our first limitations. For to all things that are not unknowable, all things in the universe, there correspond in that universe faculties which can take cognizance of them, and in man, the microcosm, these faculties are always existent and at a certain stage capable of development. Very important. We may choose not to develop them. Where they are partially developed, we may discourage and impose on them a kind of atrophy. But fundamentally, all possible knowledge is knowledge within the power of humanity. Oh. And from the Upanishads, the unknown is that which is beyond the known. And though unknown is not unknowable, if we can enlarge our faculties or attain to others that we do not yet possess. Let me read it again. The unknown is that which is beyond the known. And though unknown is not unknowable, if we can enlarge our faculties or attain to others that we do not yet possess. So if this light of the unknown can wake in us the prophet and the seer, we are progressing. But now he says, sadly, but truthfully, the outward and the immediate are our field. The dead past is our background and support. Mind keeps the soul prisoner. We are slaves to our acts. We cannot free our gaze to reach wisdom's sun. Oh, there's a lot to speak of here, isn't there? You see, the dead past, he doesn't say that it is simply our background, but he says it is also our support. Now, what Mother has written is very interesting. She says, at every moment, we must shake off the past like fading dust, that it may not soil the virgin path, which at every moment also is opening before us. So Mother says that we have to get rid of this past that holds us back. But there are also aspects of the past that are our support. All of the things that brought us to this present birth, to this present incarnation on earth. So the outward and the immediate are our field. There is no doubt of that. The dead past is our background and support. But there's a semicolon there. Mind keeps the soul prisoner. We are slaves to our acts. And I think all of us can agree that this is often the case with us, that our minds keep our soul a prisoner, and our actions make us slaves to them. If this is so always, then we cannot free our gaze to reach this sun of wisdom. Now, the next lines are so beautiful that I will read them and then speak to you a bit about nature. From Sri Aurobindo. Inheritor of the brief animal mind, man, still a child in nature's mighty hands, in the succession of the moments lives. To a changing present is his narrow right. His memory stares back at a phantom past. The future flees before him as he moves. He sees imagined garments, not a face. Oh, how beautiful those lines are. How powerful. Oh. So we are all inheritors of this brief animal mind. Because we are still children in these mighty hands of nature. And Sri Aurobindo speaks of nature in the Life Divine. He says, all nature is simply the seer will, the knowledge force of the conscious being at work to evolve in force and form all the inevitable truth of the idea into which it has originally thrown itself. And in Essays Divine and Human, he says, for nature is nothing but the will of God in action. And in the Synthesis of Yoga, he gives us two definitions of nature. The first, an active force of conscious being which realizes itself in its powers of self-experience, its powers of knowledge, will, self-delight, self-formulation, with all their marvelous variations, inversions, conservations, and conversions of energy, even perversions, is what we call Prakriti or nature, in ourselves as in the cosmos. Now, you might think it strange that Sri Aurobindo would speak of perversions as a part of nature. But to this, we have to go back to Mother and Sri Aurobindo and Mother's parable of the divine creation and the emanations that originally came down and then turned away from the truth and became the opposite. And we've all probably read that because it's very important. And it can almost only be told as a parable because it is a play of the divine which mentally we cannot understand. So the divine has chosen also to experience perversions, evil, war, difficulty as other aspects of himself. But on our thinking mind's level, this seems to be shocking. And yet, as we rise above to a higher mind, illumined or intuitive, and eventually to overmind, maybe supermind, we can see that this is simply the play of the seer will, the knowledge force of the conscious being. He says again in synthesis, nature, because she is a power of spirit, is essentially qualitative in her action. One may almost say that nature is only the power in being and the development in action of the infinite qualities of the spirit. And I'd like to share two more quotes, one from the essays on the Gita. Simply, nature is God's power of various self-becoming. And lastly, from the Life Divine. A Gnostic supernature transcends all the values of our normal, ignorant nature. Our standards and values are created by ignorance and therefore cannot determine the life of supernature. At the same time, our present nature is a derivation from supernature and is not a pure ignorance, but a half knowledge. Now, we'll close with that for today, and I would like someone to read who has not read before. Kirti, could you read the lines from Savitri where we began at the very beginning of the canto?
From Too Seldom?
Yes.
Too seldom is the shadow of what must come, cast in an instant on the secret sense, which feels the shock of the invisible, and seldom in the few who answer give the mighty process of the cosmic will, communicates its image to our sight, identifying the world's mind with ours. Our range is fixed within the crowded arc of what we observe and touch and thought can guess. And rarely dawns the light of the unknown, waking in us the prophet and the seer. The outward and the immediate are our field. The dead past is our background and support. Mind keeps the soul prisoner. We are the slaves to our acts. We cannot free our gaze to reach wisdom's sun, inheritor of the brief animal mind. Man, still a child in nature's mighty hands, in the succession of the moments lives, to a changing present in his narrow ride. His memory stares back at a phantom past. The future flees before him as he moves. He sees imagined garments, not a face.
Thank you so much. Beautiful reading.
Thank you.
This line is so marvelous. He sees imagined garments, not a face. But we have seen the face of the divine in Mother and Sri Aurobindo. And whether it was physically or in a photo, we are all blessed. So completely blessed by this call and our response to it, to the divine life. Thank you all, and namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste.